I'd like to start is you and I having a conversation. I can't remember if it was during a podcast or just messages, but you were like, "Hey, Magita's making all this noise, but people forget I'm the guy that's sub 1 hour Hyrox. I'm the guy that's close to Hunter. Do you remember that?"
I do remember that.
So, uh, what was that, a year ago? And you just weren't focused on Hyrox, or you didn't travel, or
Well,
when was this?
that was about a year ago, and it was it was right when my son was being born.
Right.
Um, so I took some time off from training, and like I wasn't in shape. Like this time last year, I was in probably the worst shape that I've been in since starting Spartan racing back in like 2014. And I wasn't even sure I was going to come back. Like I was like maybe I got this job at UPS. I'm a dad now. Like maybe it's time to move on. So yeah, I just wasn't doing much of anything. And Magita's over here in the meantime trying to fill my shoes. And I'm like, yo, like y'all just forget about me. Like I'm gone for a little bit. And so, you know, he held it down while I was gone, but I'm back.
Well, you're more than back. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the first guy to beat him here, and now we're like dying for the rematch. We're dying for Hagler Hearns too in Vegas. I assume we're going to see that there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you use what is that a box? Is that a boxing
That's a
analogy?
boxing reference. Yes, I
Okay.
could have said like Tyson Holyfield or a number of matchups.
And I kind of related the Hyrox event, like each run in each station. I look at it as an 8 round boxing match.
Okay.
Um, and like looking back on the race this past weekend, which I've gone through my brain like 100 times on like what I felt like, you know, allowed me to do what I did. And I really broke it down, like I just said, as like a boxing match style. I was like, okay, round one was the first run in the ski erg. Like I won that round, like round two, the run and the sled push. Hunter probably won that round, but psychologically, I won that round, because here I am still coming out in first place after that station. So, um, yeah, it was a good race.
Well, you said I knew right after the pull, which is typically where he pulls away, right?
I
Like
should
people.
I should take a step back on that. I actually knew before the race started, if I'm being 100% honest. I was just that confident. It was the first time where I didn't feel intimidated by Hunter. I don't know if it's like, I mean, he's a large guy. He's put together. Like he can, even though I know him and we're friends, like every time we race, I'm like, dude, this guy is a freaking beast, and sometimes that can get in your head, but um, for whatever reason, I just didn't feel that this time. Like it was just kind of like, dude, you're a man just like I'm a man, and we put on our pants the same way. And I don't think I've ever had that mindset before, like going into a race. So even when I was kind of like in front of him, and I knew he was chasing me, rather than being like, oh no, like, can I hold him off? It was like, come and get me, like, come on, let's go. Like I'm ready. And like I said, that's just not a mindset that I've had before, and I don't really know where that came from. I mean, maybe it was because we wrestled in Spartan games, and it was just like, you fear the bully, and then finally you got to fight the bully, and then after you fight the bully, whether you win or you lose, you're no longer scared of the bully.
Well, I was just speaking to someone this morning about this very match because, believe it or not, this is
Whoop.
you know my life is surrounded by people talking to me about this stuff even when I'm not working. And I said, it's kind of like the Tiger Woods thing, right? Like Tiger's unbeatable until he was. Now, it doesn't mean Hunter's going to lose every time. I hope we get to see a battle with you guys for years, right? Or you beat him the next couple times, and we'll say, okay, the Hunter era of Hyrox was over, right? Or is over.
Right.
Um, so we'll see what's going to happen. But definitely,
It
what did
wasn't it, it wasn't like he had like a fall off. He still ran 58 something, like which is probably his second or third fastest
right?
Hyrox of all time. So it wasn't like, Hunter had a terrible showing and like he's completely fallen off. Like, no, like he had a pretty great race. Um, I just happen to have a better one.
Well, something that comes up, Bracken talks about it a lot when we talk about obstacle racing, and so I brought this up on our call about, you know, if you lose Atkins, right, at the third climb, right, you may never see him again, right.
Hmm.
However, this is a race where maintaining pace can keep you in it, and we saw Tiago do that in Europe, right? So for you, you said you knew early on, and now you're 40 seconds ahead at everything. Is there is there a scenario for either one of you, right, racing the other guy, that you do fall 20 seconds behind in one of the first few, but you do make it up later? Because what I was saying was, we never really know how far you're ahead till wall balls. Now we know, okay, but everything
Right.
else is, there's a run or a station that can be picked up. So do you understand what I'm saying? Where there's a time that you could be in the lead, and then before you know it, he's on you again.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely those stations. And as far as like Hunter goes, it was, the sled push and sled pull. Like those were the big ones where I felt like, if I can get out of there like pretty close to him, like I have a shot at the race. And if you go back and look at some of the splits from past Hyrox events, I've always done compared pretty well to him on the sled push. He's only beaten me by He'll beat me by like 8 to 10 seconds on the sled push. So I've always been able to match him pretty well there. It was always the sled pull, where he'd put maybe like a minute on me or something, and then you're just like, you lose by a minute and a half. You lose 30 seconds over the rest of the race. So again, yeah, like when I came out of the sled pull, um, with a bigger lead than I had probably going in, I got this like shot of adrenaline through my body that like I can't even explain, because it's like I'm really doing it. I'm doing it. Like, let's go. And it's something I've always actually talked to Bracken with. It's like putting yourself in the fight. Like, even though you may have to redline or push a little harder earlier in the race, like maybe that first run and first ski erg, but you're in it, and then like good things can happen to you, like if you're in the fight, and that's sort of what happened to me this weekend.
What did you do training wise, or do you think it's just mindset?
No, it's training for sure. I mean, you either can move that sled or you can't, and um, it's just like, are you willing to put in the work to move it? And I've just been working the sled pull, because if when I study high rocks, I know what Hunter can do. That's the brilliant thing about that race, is like, what people can do on each station. I know how fast Hunter's burpee broad jumps are. I know how fast mine are. So I know how much time he's going to be able to gain. Um, but I knew the pull was like one of my biggest weaknesses. Not overall, but if I wanted to beat Hunter, it needed to get better. It was still one of the better sled pulls, but he was still dominating. So like that has been a huge focus. I've got one of those tank sleds, where I set the highest resistance, and then I throw like 600 pounds on this sled, and I have a driveway that's at a little bit of a slant. So I just roll the tank all the way to the bottom of the driveway, and then just slowly pull it up, and I just build stamina and some overall like brute strength by doing it, but mostly it's just the repetitiveness of it, and building the muscular endurance to be able to you know keep pulling it hard for 3 to 4 minutes.
So that's your training technique. Just pull really heavy weight.
And do it for volume too. Don't just do it for strength. Do it for volume. Like, you know, spend 5 minutes, 6 minutes doing a pull where you're grabbing the rope and taking steps back, because so much of your body is being used in that movement. It's not just your upper body. You're using a lot of leg strength too to pull that thing back. And I actually think leaving the sled pull is a harder run. The run after that is harder than the sled push, in my personal opinion. So yeah, like anybody out there, like, don't just train for strength, train for volume, because if you look at a lot of those times, people are pulling for multiple minutes. So you need some stamina, as well, not just strength.
You're saying you think that's where people just underestimate it?
I think so. Probably a little bit. Yeah, a lot. I mean, gosh, look at some of the guys. They're plenty strong enough to pull it, but it's like it's the fatigue factor, cardiovascular fatigue that you're experiencing, probably along with, the stamina that you might not have. Like maybe you're good, you can pull it down and back, but can you pull it down and back twice at the same speed? So there's some endurance qualities in there too that maybe some people overlook.